The first thing we're going to be talking about today is we had talked about and pushed out some information regarding the Vertcoin hash power and kind of how we were trying to make sure to spread that out amongst other pools. So as you can see here, we put out a tweet regarding decentralization on our network, and we wanted to make sure that people were aware that the number one address on our network was a pool called Coinotron, and that is the pool that NiceHash uses whenever they are mining Layer 2. So that is their preferred pool. So, of course, when that becomes profitable on their system, it switches over to that pool and a ton of hash power comes in. So we have been in contact with NiceHash. We've been in contact with Coinotron. We know the guy who runs Coinotron, just getting them to, try to put other pools in there and to spread around that decentralization. So we're not having such a large amount of hashing power coming from a tool like NiceHash, where it's easy to use. It's not like there's a ton of people who are trying to go to Coinotron. It's just this is the pool that NiceHash uses. Just trying to spread it out a little bit more and get some more hash power into the other pools. So we encouraged all of our followers on Twitter and Facebook and things of that nature to try out some of the other pools. I know for me personally, I use P2 pool. But I'll let Plankton and Ben, you guys can comment on this. But we really are trying to push decentralization, and of course, if the majority of our hash rate is under one pool, that's not very decentralized. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's just, I think the main point to emphasize is we're just really early days at the moment. Mining's nowhere near mainstream. Like, you're only just starting to see other coins with GUI programs that make it really, really easy for people to start mining. There's so much mining gear, so many graphics cards sitting there out there unutilized, and even if some small percentage of the world you started using graphics cards, then we'd be actually moving. You've got problems these days is because people like NiceHash, there aren't other competitors. So when someone comes along and people say, oh, look, this coin's profitable, you get this massive increase in hash rate. Interestingly, it was actually very similar back in the early days of Bitcoin. And actually Litecoin as well went through the same phase where there was very dominant pools, and they went through very, very similar issues. So I think it's more growing pains, but we'd just like to see more, one, a competitor to NiceHash and other similar services, and two, more people just taking up GPU mining. Because if more people took it up, the impact of these pools would be much, much less. So we'll see how it progresses, but obviously we rather people use P2 pool. That's a much, much better option. Ben, do you want to cover the P2 pool?
Yeah, so I mean, basically the idea is that you open up your own you could open up your own node and join like some other people's like pools, and like you open that on yourself, because really what we're trying to do is promote decentralization, as what we're trying to say, and kind of people to make it easier on themselves, like they join this something like NiceHash, and they basically buying and like selling hash power. But as what Plankton pointed out, people have GPUs sitting around in their computer. People there's not doing anything else. If you just set up use a P2 pool, and we have guides that help show how to do it, you can help promote that decentralization, because one more person on the network mining, that further decentralizes it. And then if we continue to have more people, they could join each other's pools and stuff like that. But the more people that individually, or a little group of people that just mine, just turn it on their computer and set up P2 pool, the more decentralized it is. The whole of the thing of network effects is that when you more people that join the network, the more secure it is. But if you start to sequester power like NiceHash does, then it becomes less decentralized, and we want to avoid something like that, because as mentioned by Plankton, in the early days, Bitcoin, Litecoin, they had similar problems, and then now we have problems with ASICs. But we want to promote as much decentralization as possible, and the best way to do that is to do P2 pool.
Yeah, and we're aware, we're constantly monitoring the percentages of, what pools, what addresses are using or contributing the most hash power to our network, because as everybody knows, we are very decentralization focused, and we want to avoid ASICs, and be able to, if one comes on the network, we are constantly monitoring to make sure to identify that as soon as possible. So we're always looking at this, and we're constantly making sure that we're trying to spread this out, and have it as decentralized as possible. So here on the screen, I have a list of some other pools. We did tweet this out. It's an older list that Eric put out, but P2 pool is very simple, especially if you use the one-click miner. All you have to do is do some port forwarding on your router to enable people to connect to your pool. But if you don't want people to connect to it, if you just want to mine to it, it's very simple to get set up. It's literally just a few clicks, and then you're actually hashing to your own pool, which is really good because latency can contribute to orphans and slow down the number of hashing that you're able to do over a certain amount of time. So having a pool that is very local to you, that's why they always say whenever you select a pool from P2 pool or on the one-click miner, you want to make sure that it's not that far away from you, that the latency isn't that far. So having it on the same computer or in a computer right in the next room from you, obviously drastically lowers that latency and just increases your performance that you're getting out of your GPUs whenever you're mining. So we just recommend that use P2 pool, use an alternative pool instead of Coinotron, just so we can get those hash powers spread out across the network.